Good afternoon, everyone. We'll call the Public Safety Subcommittee meeting to order. And Mayor Pro Tem, if you would lead us in the flag salute. We'll have a moment of silence for former Mayor Manuel Lopez, who passed away yesterday afternoon, a great servant to our community.
Place your hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. You may be seated. Madam Clerk, roll call and posting, please.
Member Lopez?
Here.
Member Ramirez?
Here.
Chair McDonald?
Here.
Chair, we have a quorum, and the agenda for this meeting was posted in the City Hall kiosk on Tuesday, January 21st.
Thank you. We'll now move to public comments on items not on the agenda. And I have one speaker card, Linda Calderon. Oh, D2? Okay, never mind then. Unless you want to speak on something else. No? Okay. Then we don't have a speaker card. I stand corrected. Consent agenda. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes?
Yes. I moved to approve.
Okay. Second, and no objections or abstentions? No, then that will pass. Thank you very much. Item D1, Police Department, Third Amendment to Axon International Contract.
Good afternoon, Public Safety Committee members. I'm Commander Whitney with the Oxnard Police Department. I'm in charge of patrol operations and specifically the body-worn camera program. Also present with us today is Assistant Chief Sansegard and our Investigations Commander, Sharon Giles. We're here to talk about the Third Amendment to the Axon contract. The recommendation is that the Public Safety Commission recommends City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute a Third Amendment to the contract number A7858 with Axon International to add to the scope of services. The original agreement was approved by City Council in March of 2016. The Third Amendment will include the following changes to the existing contract: adding 66 licensed users, adding a redaction assistant software program, adding 80 units of signal vehicle to be installed in police cruisers, add a video recording system for 6 interview rooms at police headquarters, and ratify the purchase of 50 TASER electronic control devices. The amount of the Third Amendment is $276,602.78. In general, we know that body-worn cameras have a positive impact on public's perception and confidence in the police department. Studies have shown that they improve police-community interactions and promote transparency in operational procedures. This is a background on the Axon contract. The original agreement was made in March of 2016. City Council authorized the purchase of 50 body-worn cameras. The purchase price was $375,608.65. That included what's called an officer safety package, which consisted of not only the body-worn cameras, but a TASER to go along with each body-worn camera that was purchased. 6 months later, in September of 2016, City Council authorized an additional 100 body-worn cameras to be purchased at a cost of $729,808.27. That also consisted of the officer safety package. Then approximately a year and a half later, in March of 2018, City Council authorized the purchase of 50 additional body-worn cameras. That purchase did not include the officer safety package. Thus, it did not include the TASERs with it. It was just the cameras themselves. And the cost was $268,973.55. So this proposed Third Amendment before you today is in the amount of $276,602.78, which would bring the total agreement amount through October of 2024 to $1,650,993.25. So AxonEvidence.com, it's basically a cloud-based system that consolidates digital files. It makes them easy to manage, access, and share, and it maintains security and chain of custody. Currently, we have 200 Evidence.com licenses, which corresponds with the number of body-worn cameras that we purchased. However, we have 266 personnel within the department that use Evidence.com. Both sworn and civilian personnel. Thus, we need to add 66 Evidence.com licenses. The second part of the Third Amendment is for a redaction assistant software program. In general, prior to releasing any body-worn camera to the public, it's necessary for us to go back and redact the videos. This is to ensure privacy and confidentiality is respected. Redaction Assistant basically uses artificial intelligence to identify and track faces, screens, and license plates. By screens, we're referring to like computer screens. An example would be like in the police cruisers, there's confidential information on the computer screens. Redaction Assistant automatically goes through and blurs that information out. Essentially, the Redaction Assistant software reduces time required to redact a video by 90%. Something that would normally take 10 hours to redact manually, we can get it done in an hour. We've been beta testing this product, and we're very satisfied with it. The discounted price for the first year is $24,000. The normal cost will be $28,800 for the second year. Axon signal vehicle. That's basically a piece of hardware that's installed in a police cruiser. What it does, it sends a Bluetooth signal to the body-worn camera to automatically activate the body-worn camera when there's the emergency lights and siren are activated. This allows officers to focus on the critical driving situation in front of them without having to be concerned about manually activating their body-worn camera. By policy, officers are required to activate their body-worn camera, so this just ensures that they'll be within policy without one less thing they have to be concerned about in an emergency situation. Our interview rooms, our existing cameras in our interview rooms are very outdated. They're in disrepair and they're in need of replacement. We'd like to update our interview rooms with a system that's cloud-based. It's a cloud-based evidence system. The Axon interview room interfaces well with the body-worn camera software. All recordings would be stored in evidence.com, which houses all of our body-worn camera recordings. This will allow us to standardize the housing and control of digital evidence. The cost for the interview room, the first year includes the hardware, the cameras, the servers, the soft screen panels, and warranty, and that amounts to $68,191.68. Years 2 through 5 are basically for software updates and maintenance. So the cost for years 2 through 5 are $7,943 per year. So the total amount over 5 years will be $99,963.68. So.
Just a couple questions. I'm glad you explained what an Axon signal vehicle was, because I had no clue. I was going to ask, so thank you for covering me on that.
Sure.
In terms of the redaction assistant, when you redact the video, do you retain the original video untouched?
Yes. Yes.
And who has access to the redaction system? Is it limited?
Our Axon program administrator, she's the one that does all the redactions.
Okay.
And with with evidence.com, there's an audit trail, so the original recording is not altered. And then also we have an audit trail each time someone views it or makes any modifications to the original.
Perfect. I'm just concerned that someone somewhere may say, oh yeah, the cops went in there and adjusted it themselves and modified it. So this way we can absolutely say that didn't happen.
Absolutely, yes.
Perfect. Mayor Pro Tem, any questions?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm really pleased that we got over that problem, people wanting it, not wanting it. So here we are. I think it has proven to be something that increases confidence, so I'm very pleased about that. I wanted to just ask about the TASER training for our officers. Can you talk about that? It's been a little bit controversial in other jurisdictions.
Chief Sonsgaard is here to talk about that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. So our officers, all of our officers that work in the field are issued our electronic control devices, or tasers, and they go through annual training. And that training consists not only of the physical manipulation of a taser, which admittedly is not difficult and is not really the main crux of what the training is. A vast majority of the training involves decision-making, policy review, de-escalation. We've integrated our tasers into our new force option simulator. I think you might have heard us discuss that. It's like a three-dimensional, video game's a poor word for it, but like a simulation, and our tasers are part of that as well. And so officers, through video scenarios, are confronted with situations, and they have to choose whether to use their taser or use their words or move to cover, things like that. So we kind of integrate the taser into all different types of training, and I would put our level of training for officers up against any law enforcement agency around here.
Thank you.
Yep.
And just two more questions. We are every day getting more and more film, right? And is there a limit, or does at some point it get erased or kicked out? Because after a while, it will take up quite space on the cloud.
Our contract allows us to have unlimited storage.
Okay, terrific.
So as of right now, we're not discarding any recordings.
And one last thing is, I'm always concerned about cybersecurity for anything that's ultimately going out of our physical space, goes to the cloud. And do we have any safeguards for that are built into the contract? Do you know?
I don't know of any that are built into the contract, but Axon, as a company, is a very reputable company. Mm-hmm. It's the most common one used by law enforcement agencies mm-hmm. throughout the country by far. So okay. We're quite confident that it's secure.
Well, it would just be my suggestion. We always ask that question when we're dealing with them, and just like, what's an update on your cybersecurity? All of our cities are concerned about even our basic personnel and financial, and so yes, I think it'd be a good idea to just ask that. Thank you very much. Terrific.
And just a quick follow-up on the utilization of the taser. Some models have a trail log or a log that can be utilized and reviewed. And, the officer says, I'd used it twice, and the other person says he used it 15 times. We're able to verify that, correct?
That is correct, yes.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Or council member, any questions? You want to be mayor?
Me. No, the Mayor Pro Tem asked the questions I had about the cloud and the capacity of it. So thank you for the information.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. What's the pleasure of the committee? Oh, no, D2.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that passes. Now we go to D2. As soon as I get back to figure out what that is. Pedestrian and bicyclist safety.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a quick introduction before staff gets into our report. And I want to discuss this a little bit because I want to make it clear that what we're up against here is not a strictly Oxnard challenge. It's actually a national situation. I recently received a copy of a report, and so there was no time to include any of this into this staff report, but I'd like to include it before it goes to the council. And it's entitled Dangerous by Design. It's their 2019 report, and it's a coalition of Smart Growth America, National Complete Streets Coalition, AARP, which I'm actually a member of, the American Society of Landscape Architects, and Nelson Nygaard. And the 2019 report, and it was published recently, there's a good summary in here that discusses some data between 2008 and 2017. And the gist of their report is looking at the data to try to understand why it is that traffic fatalities are increasing for pedestrians. And so here are 4 quick facts. Between 2008 and 2017, and this is nationally, pedestrian deaths increased by 35.4%. However, vehicle miles traveled only increased by 8.1%. And traffic deaths among motor vehicle occupants, so people in vehicles, actually decreased by 6.1%. And the increase of people walking over this time period was actually only about 1%. So this is a very fascinating report with a lot of interesting information, so we'll include it with our staff report as an attachment when this goes to council. But I just want to give you that national framework. Again, that data is between 2008 and 2017. So clearly, there are issues going on across the country. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Denise Shadinger, Commander with the Oxnard Police Department, and I'm in charge of the Traffic Bureau that oversees traffic, both pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicular safety in the city. I'm going to be joined by the Traffic Sergeant, Ricardo Vasquez, and also present is Eric Sonstegard, our Assistant Chief. Our objective here today is to provide you with a presentation on pedestrian and bicycle safety in the city, and that includes collision statistics, engineering efforts, enforcement, and education to the public. The challenges we face here in Oxnard with pedestrian and bicycle safety specifically are that we are in a city that is over 100 years old. The design of the city today does not meet the needs of the community. We have infrastructure that's outdated, including street design, neighborhood design, and commercial design, development design. We have a mixture of old and new residential and commercial areas as our city has continued to grow. And we have design changes that are not feasible, both due to economic reasons and just the design that has already been laid out in the city. Imagine, if you will, the city taking on the project of restructuring 5 Points to make it friendly for bicyclists and pedestrians, and to still maintain all the traffic that goes through there and also the railway that goes through there. It would be an astronomical challenge in just that one small area alone in the city. And we face that all over the city, from the north end of the city all the way down to the south end of our city. The other factor that comes into play is that we are largely have a commuter-based population here in our city. A lot of residents live here that work in other areas. And not only do they go one route to the 101, they literally disperse our city to go to work every day and to come home every day through all avenues of our city, north, south, east, and west. We have people that leave out Pleasant Valley to hit PCH, to go to Malibu, to go to LA, to take that route into their job places or wherever they're commuting to. We have people that try to avoid the 101 and take 5th Street out to either hit the 101 or go to Camarillo or go the back way into Moore Park and the San Fernando Valley. And we also have people that take the major thoroughfares of Ventura Road, Rose Avenue, and Oxnard Boulevard to hit the 101 to go both north and south. The problem that creates in the city is there is always a factor of speed. I think during peak traffic hours, you always have commuters who are late for work, late dropping off kids to school, late to their appointments, and that does create a speed factor. We also have a lack of bicycle lanes in the city. It doesn't make it very friendly for bicyclists in our city to commute on major thoroughfares or to use that as an avenue to get to their job place if they do work in the city or work in neighboring locations where using a bicycle would be advantageous to them. And we also do not have pedestrian-friendly roadways. We have wide intersections, 5 Points, Vineyard Avenue and Oxnard Boulevard, where it's very difficult for a pedestrian to make it all the way across or to make it across safely, avoiding traffic issues. That creates a lot of the problems that we see in our city, and those are challenges that we face when looking with engineering, enforcement, and also educating our public, both the pedestrians and the bicyclists, and also the vehicles that are traveling on our roadway. Some of the statistics for the last 5 years for pedestrian-involved collisions, we do see them ebb and flow a little bit, but they have continued to rise in total pedestrian collisions since 2015. However, even when we do have a dip in total collisions or total injury collisions, even one injury collision involving a pedestrian is too many, and we should not accept that. And as you can see, this year we've had the most pedestrian fatal collisions with 7, one of them being a student in our community. And that, we should say as a city, is unacceptable. If you look at our bicycle-involved collisions, they both have gone up and down, but again, even one bicyclist that's involved in a collision, especially with injury or especially with fatality, is too many in our city. The last statistics that were released by the Office of Traffic Safety, and keep in mind the statistics released are usually a couple of years behind because it takes them that long to release them, are from 2017. We were 10 out of 58 California cities in pedestrian injury collisions. We were 7 in bicyclist collisions, and we were number 2 in pedestrian collisions under the age of 15. Now, that sounds really good until you realize that they're rated from worst to best, and number 1 is the worst. So if we're number 2 in 2017 with pedestrians under 15, that's an unacceptable statistic for our city. What I'd like to do now is introduce our traffic sergeant, Ricardo Vasquez. He's going to discuss the efforts that we've continued to maintain with enforcement education and working with the traffic engineer's office, and what we're looking to do in the future.
Once again, my name is Ricardo Vasquez. I'm one of the traffic sergeants of the police department. Just another stat that I wanted to mention is when we were looking at the report from the Office of Traffic Safety and where we rank within other cities our size, another very important fact is that we were ranked number 2 in DUI arrests, meaning that we were second best in cities our size for the amount of DUI arrests we have. So that shows that we are proactive, and we're really generate a lot of interest in the department with our officers and the traffic unit in actively going out and reduce drunk drivers. So I think it's very important to understand that our officers work very diligently to try to increase traffic safety.
So, thank you. But I'm confused now because higher the number, the worse for the pedestrian fatalities.
Yes.
But this, higher the number for DUIs, is that good?
Per capita, no. There's 2 ways of looking at it. Yes, we do have an increased amount of DUIs in our city, and it is based on the data, on the arrest data. However, our officers are out there working hard to take those impaired drivers off our streets and making our roadways safer.
Good enforcement is what you're saying.
Very good enforcement,
Thank
and
you.
that was just one category that Office of Traffic Safety measures. But it does show that our officers do work very hard to try to reduce impaired driving. So that was one category that we actually ranked very high, and they supported us and recognized our efforts. But another element that we have is on our education. We understand that enforcement alone is not the key to increase safety, pedestrian and bicycle safety, and general traffic safety in our city. We do understand that we have to have also an implementation or practice of educating our community. So some of the measures that we have to educate our community is through traffic safety fairs and presentations that we offer our community. Regularly, we provide presentations to students and pedestrians and parents at schools. We have and we host community events and community meetings like at neighborhood council meetings, so where we discuss traffic safety presentations and pedestrian and bicycle safety. Another aspect is we always participate in the national campaigns. This year, for example, during the National Walk to School month in October, several traffic officers primarily worked in District 3, and we worked in the Colonia and Rose Park neighborhoods, the routes that children walk to school, and we monitored the routes to ensure that the children were safe. So every year we participate in the national safety campaigns. We also use social media. Over the past several years, we've shared numerous videos, traffic safety videos, pedestrian safety videos, and posted those on on our Facebook page and our web page to promote pedestrian and bicycle safety. Another area is we host safety walks and bicycle safety rides. So we get together with groups of people, and we actually walk the neighborhoods and ride bikes through certain routes to try to educate the community about bicycle safety and pedestrian safety. Another element is enforcement, and including our general enforcement that the officers go out every day, we have supplemental funding to provide education and enforcement. So we have a STEP grant that we're currently working with. It's a $400,000 grant, which primarily focuses on enforcement. They provide funding for DUI enforcement, bicycle safety enforcement, pedestrian safety enforcement, and education, and also motorcycle safety. Part of the STEP grant is also some education. So we are encouraged to conduct these enforcement operations and highly publicize what we're doing so we can share information to our community. Another aspect of our enforcement is school enforcement. Primarily, officers are directed, our traffic officers are directed every day to go out and work enforcement at our schools. I was asked recently by our command staff what our traffic officers do daily. And I had mentioned that every day the traffic officers are directed to work the drop-offs and dismissal times at our schools. So for example, the traffic officers would plan a day ahead or the week before, and they work group saturations with the school resource officers, and they work per district in group saturations, identifying the routes that the children walk to school, the crosswalks, and actually the schools themselves. And they monitor the schools to try to promote safe driving and increase safety for our pedestrians and school-related traffic. Another area that we try to promote is engineering. There was recently a study that was conducted that enforcement changes behavior. So traffic officers, when an officer issues a person a citation, studies have shown that that behavior or change in behavior of driving pattern only lasts for about 6 months. So really, in order to make an impact on a given roadway or in an area, we have to work in conjunction with the traffic engineer's office. So we generally work with the traffic engineer's office to try to change the design of the roadway. For example, if we need additional signage, additional markings, changing the timing phases to help increase traffic flow or make the roadway safer. We understand that we have to build that relationship with the traffic engineers to improve roadway safety. And then over the last several years, we participated in numerous studies by outside organizations, and most recently we participated in a complete streets safety assessment with the UC Berkeley. And what we did is we worked with researchers to identify roadways in our community which we identified as areas that needed improvement. So we researched, or they did research on Woolley Road, Oxnard Boulevard, Vineyard, and Gonzales. And they recently completed the survey, and they noted that that there were very good policies, rules and regulations, and good engineering recommendations that were already implemented in the city. However, they did recommend areas of improvement both through education, enforcement, and engineering. So we're always looking for different ways to try to improve our overall traffic safety, and assessments are a key role to that. Now, looking forward to the future. I'm currently working on 2 grants. One of them is another STEP grant, Selective Traffic Enforcement Program. That one is very similar to the grant that we have right now. It is the same grant. However, I'm going to ask for an increased amount of funding. This new grant, I'm asking for about $440,000, which will include, once again, some enforcement operations. However, there is some educational element to that as well. You should be receiving this grant shortly once it's finalized, so you folks can review it. But what I'm excited to report is I'm actually working on a second grant for the following year, and it's actually a pedestrian and bicycle safety specific grant. That grant is specifically for education. And some of the things that we're going to be asking for is to fund specific bicycle and pedestrian safety community presentations, participation in education on safe routes to schools and walking school buses. We're going to try to fund bicycle rodeos, where we're going to host a rodeo where not only we're going to invite bicyclists to bring their bicycles so we can examine them, make sure that they have lights, proper equipment, make sure that they can function properly. So we'll have mechanics there, bicycle mechanics, inspecting their bicycles, but also we'll set up roadways where we can take them on a mock intersection and teach young bicyclists or bicyclists the rules of the roadway. And then it's also going to fund community bike rides. So we would get together, community bike rides and walks, where we would meet with community members and actually drive or walk through our community. So not only can we teach pedestrians and bicyclists the rules of the roadway, but also advise motorists and educate motorists that to be cognizant of pedestrians and bicyclists. So I'm really excited that we're going to try to ask and apply for this grant, which is about $35,000. And once again, once that grant is completed, it'll be submitted for your review. And the final element for looking forward is that we're going to work closer with the traffic engineer's office. We're planning quarterly meetings with the traffic engineer's office so we can assess roadway conditions, see if we need additional improvements on school, on signage or roadway markings. And then the final element is school safety assessments. What we're planning to do is complete school safety assessments within 1 year on all the schools within the city. And we'll work in conjunction with the school risk manager, school administrators, the police department, and the traffic engineer's office to take a holistic approach to school traffic safety. So ultimately what our goal is to increase traffic safety and pedestrian and bicycle safety through looking at community outreach and education, engineering improvements, and then the last element would be enforcement.
Thank you.
That's it. Any questions? All right. Thank you.
Linda Calderon.
Good afternoon. Maybe it's because I've gotten to the age I am that I'm more aware of things for seniors, and that's one thing I just want to comment right now that I did not hear mentioned at all. And I remember, I believe it was on Vineyard that there was an older gentleman that was killed by a car. I can't imagine even, maybe he lives alone, but if not, even letting your parents go out at night if you're in your 80s or up. But that's one thing that I think we need to give some of this time to, is also going around to senior centers and doing whatever we can to let the seniors know too. Something on television like this maybe. My dad was a volunteer with the Boy Scouts of America for over 40 years. So I still remember the things that he taught me about safety and walking and so on. And one of the things he mentioned, which I don't know if we bring this up when we have a campaign like this, is wearing light-colored clothing at night. It drives me crazy when I see all these bicycles and so on with everything black. So we need to let the public know that that is not seen. If somebody suddenly steps out in front of you and you cannot see them till they're halfway across the street, on some of the streets around here, then their life is in danger. The other thing is, I don't really know what the law is on cell phones being used in crosswalks, but if it's not illegal, to me it should be the same thing as wearing headphones covering both ears when you're driving. So if we haven't passed any laws like that in our state, we need to get after Sacramento. Let me see what else I wrote down here. Anyway, I know that the police are very busy with things, excuse me, that are even higher priority than some of these things, but I would like to see more tickets given out to pedestrians. I'm sorry, but I'm allergic to something in here. And yes.
I'm allergic to them also.
No, it's right up here.
Oh. I thought you were pointing at the city manager. I'm
No,
sorry.
no. He said he is too. No, I'd like to see more tickets given out to bicyclists, who are not obeying the law and to more pedestrians. I think, you know, when it hits you in the pocket, that helps to curb certain things. And that's basically what I had to say, except we need to do something about our sound system. I have to turn my TV up double to hear at the council meetings or any other things. Every other channel is fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chief, you want to say something?
Is it okay if I address some of our comments?
Absolutely.
I feel like I haven't had a chance to talk today. Love those comments. We appreciate it, Ms. Calderon. I was in Germany last summer, and every little kid that was a pedestrian on the street wore a yellow vest. We love that idea. It would be great if we did that. When you drive around this city or any city at about 6 p.m., suddenly it's dark and you cannot see bicyclists. And we have bicyclists. You see it a lot. I see it on up and down Oxnard Boulevard. It's very hard to enforce, but they drive up and down Oxnard Boulevard, sometimes on the center median, sometimes splitting cars, sometimes on the sidewalk. It's very hard to see. It's terribly dangerous. We don't want that. There is no law against talking on your cell phone and walking. You cannot ride. The same laws that apply to driving apply to riding your bicycle, but not for walking. I think that's a good idea. Oftentimes when pedestrians are struck, it's kind of like, oftentimes it's, both the driver and the pedestrian share some blame in that. There's another comment about giving more tickets. So we do think that, as Sergeant Vasquez mentioned, tickets they do change behavior. We're not fans of ticketing just for ticketing. If we think it's going to improve traffic safety, we do that, but we also have limited resources. From our perspective, a city our size, for us to have a big impact on traffic safety, to move those numbers better, we should probably double the size of our traffic unit just for the enforcement part of it. But we also know that we don't have the resources to do that because we have many other demands. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And Ms. Calderon, yes, sir. You don't have to raise your hand, just get up and walk up.
I just wanted to add, I know I didn't have a lot of time to talk about the grants and what we're looking forward to, but however, part of the grant, the bicycle and pedestrian grant, I am applying for funding so we could purchase safety equipment for pedestrians and bicyclists, and we'll be giving those away during our presentations. Another thing is, we are going to have a selective group of people that we will be speaking to. Primarily, it's going to be young children, young adults, or children, and also senior citizens or older folks. And so we are going to be hosting events just specifically for senior citizens or older people. So,
thanks, Sarge. Just a couple comments, and Ms. Calderon, I appreciate your comments. And I was going to make a similar comment about these things. And my wife is living proof of this. On one of my many trips to the East Coast, she was walking out of the Smithsonian, I think it was, and so engrossed in her phone that she didn't realize the steps went down. She went straight out, and she and her phone later arrived at the bottom of the stairs separately, but they both arrived down there. And her first comment was, "Is my phone okay?" And don't worry about your phone, worry about you. And she was so busy looking at the screen. And I see young people doing this all the time with earbuds in and looking at their phone. They're pretty much oblivious to whatever's around them. And so it's kind of scary. In regards to the school zones and the safety assessments and stuff, I would love to see the school district be willing to sit down with us prior to them building a new school facility, because they're a state level entity. They don't have to get any input from the city of Oxnard, but I think we could really help them in a design effort to better educate the parents and the people dropping their kids off in the morning. Because if you drive around any of the schools here in our city, be it a high school, intermediate, or elementary school, almost everybody seems to drive their kids to school, and it's just horrendous trying to get around the schools, and God forbid that anyone else would get hurt. But so I'd like to see us partner with the school district on the front end, instead of going back later on trying to improve their design, which maybe could have been better to begin with. But we really don't have any way of enforcing that. I don't know. I have heard that some cities, I think, are enacting ordinances that if you're a pedestrian walking in the street area, it's illegal to be on your phone. I don't know how that would fly, how we'd enforce it, but maybe there's some alternatives we can look at. Mr. Zaragoza, did you have a comment?
There are distracted walking laws on the books in Lathrop and Montclair, and then in Honolulu in Hawaii. But they're not common, and in terms of an enforcement mechanism, I really haven't researched the issue. They are on the books. I'm not sure that it's not necessarily advisable, but they are out there.
Okay. And the other problem with it is if you create an enforceable law, then comes the issue of where do you get the personnel to enforce it when we're so high stretched thin to do other things that prioritize over that. So I'm not a big fan of creating a law that we have no one to enforce it, because that makes us look even worse. So those are just my comments. Mayor Pro Tem, any comments?
Thank you. I had the experience of attending the funeral for the child killed in the Colonia. It's unforgettable, the suffering of the family. And I do think there are more things that we could do with the residents to just raise awareness, and like to see possibility of, I know we have crossing guards. We don't have them everywhere, can't have them everywhere. But having more, let's say, parents or neighbors just watching out for the kids. I think what happened, though, in the Colonia, I don't know that really was something that could have been avoided, because the driver couldn't see, and as I understand it, and it's just so tragic. I think we just need to also slow down. There's always a lot of complaining. I hear it from people when we increase speed limits on our streets, and then the response comes back, we have to, because there's a speed study, people are going fast, and if we don't change it, we can't enforce the law. And I don't know what other council members think, or staff, or traffic people, but it seems to me people should be slowing down in our residential areas. And I know it's 25 miles in a school zone. I don't know if that's really, people really respect that. I don't think they do. And especially if you live on a main thoroughfare, and as the commander was saying, people are going every which way to avoid traffic, creating more traffic. People are very impatient. I can be impatient too, I understand. But when you think about what could happen, when I leave here at night after council meetings, it's very dark. I go home down C Street, and I'm frightened, because I don't want to hurt anybody, and you cannot see. And especially a lot of our people are, as you say, Ms. Calderon, they're wearing dark clothes, or they're darting across, and I'm also afraid to hit an animal. So everybody just slow down and stop looking at your phone. That's what I say. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember?
Thank you. I think there's definitely a lot of ways that we can all work together, and I kind of see as two different areas. Pedestrian areas. So I'm curious in terms of the statistics on the collisions and those incidents, if there's a higher rates in certain areas, and that's where we focus some of these efforts. And then the second part, going along with what our chair has said about working with our schools, which I think is very important. I think a lot of us have, at one point or another, driven by or through a school zone, and you just see kids running out in front of cars. So I think that's where we can have, hopefully more collaboration and partnership with our school districts to do a joint, watching out there with teachers or parent volunteers, or, someone who is out there keeping an eye out and holding kids back, or that sort of thing. So, yeah.
When we review our statistics each month, the patrol watch commanders who oversee a specific shift or group of officers and also supervisors, they receive the statistics of high collision areas, and that's where the most collisions are occurring, and the patrol officers can then get that information to focus their enforcement efforts. And also our traffic division reviews that on a daily basis. They're most familiar with it, and they focus their enforcement efforts on the higher collision areas. I don't have those broken down as far as areas of the city for you at the moment, but we do focus on where the higher collision numbers are occurring. We also, when we work with the schools, we do give parent education on, how to release your kid, to go to school, not to get out on the side that faces traffic, to get out on the side that faces the curbside, to actually pull into a parking spot. We do give that information out not only through the traffic, but through our school resource officers to the parents. And we just recently did an education for one of the schools and provided them with safe routes to get to school, how to drop your child off, how to, not impede the flow of traffic, and how to keep their kid safe as the best they could, dropping and picking up their children from school.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question to that. So, I'm mentioning, is there a way for parent volunteers to participate in assisting in the crossing or the oversight after school or before school? Would someone who is doing that need to go through some special training to understand how do you?
They would need to go through training to learn how to appropriately enter the roadway with the stop sign, and where the appropriate safety equipment to cross children, how to communicate to the children. That's the information or the training that we give to our crossing guards.
Okay.
In the past, we have reached out and schools have requested, can you give this to parent volunteers? Usually what comes into play is they don't get volunteers to fill specific needs, and it becomes difficult with scheduling.
To maintain
But
it.
it's definitely not something, it's something that we're not opposed to. We'd love to work with parent volunteers or even community volunteers who are interested in a specific neighborhood or a school in their neighborhood to get them out there to increase the safety for our community.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for this information, and I do hope that it resonates with the rest of the community on everyone's opportunity to be more responsible, whether we're walking, driving, or riding a bike throughout the city. So thank you.
You're welcome.
And if I could just add to that, if this presentation, if it's your pleasure that we present this to council, we can have maps for the fatal collisions, the pedestrian and the bicycle collisions as well. And one other note about our recent fatalities, one common theme that we're seeing is that there are more transients, more homeless people that are getting struck. There was 16 traffic fatalities in this last year, and 5 of them were homeless people. And the first one that we had in 2020, the first Sunday in January, it was a homeless person in front of McDonald's that was suffering from mental illness. He just darted in front of traffic on Ventura Road. So,
Thank you. This was received and filed, but I think it would be beneficial, Mr. City Manager, if you want to take it to the full council. Okay. Any items for future agendas?
I want to propose one thing, and I've talked to our fire chief about the state auditor's report, Chief Bass. Not that you need to comment on it now, it's not agendized, but the state auditor released a report saying 3 counties were inadequately prepared to protect vulnerable people in disasters, and they were talking about Ventura County's lack of information to seniors, Spanish-speaking folks, and how the county needs to do better. I want to make sure our city, I think they're working on it. I think our city is doing a good job, but I'd just like to have that assessed based on what the auditor is saying and get your actual feedback on that report. So, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember? No, I have nothing. With that, we will adjourn until our next meeting. Thank you very much, everyone.